welcome back to Soul Rain. It has been a hot minute, and so I thought I would come back and have a moment to say, let's catch up today. Let me catch you up to where I've been. And undoubtedly, you can hear that. So today's episode is brought to you by Tyrael and her little pug snores. Hopefully, you're not an audiophile and that isn't too distracting for you. There's literally nothing I can do about it. If I lock her out, she will just fight, and then we'll be hearing her knocking on the door. So, where have I been? It has been several weeks, and I don't know if this is a superpower. I know it's definitely a trauma response I'm working on. But when things get chaotic or difficult for me in life, I have the ability and the tendency to just disappear. like, like nobody's business. I really do just go off like a hermit, and all existence ceases to exist anywhere other than where I am. So let's begin. Where have I been? So I got a little bit quieter. Some of you may have noticed around September, October, because I started to make some big changes. And that was very, very exciting. You already know that I started to begin to study and work under Rania Fraser for overcoming narcissistic abuse, becoming an expert coach, and of course, integrating in trauma informed hypnotherapy. That was a big journey, and that is now complete. When I say that was a big journey, let me show you what I mean. This is the big journey I'm talking about. Each sheet is double sided. So it has absolutely been a journey. I've learned so many incredible techniques. I love her protocol, the way that it all works out in the end, and the journeys that I get to help people now go through. So, people who've overcome narcissistic abuse or need help overcoming because maybe the relationship ended, and you might be realizing that there's a bigger pattern that's been happening over a longer amount of time. And we emerge from one relationship, and if we're not cautious, careful, and do our healing work, pattern repetition is going to happen. It's called repetition compulsion, where the brain is looking to solve that puzzle, heal that riddle, complete what healing that needs to be done, and we end up attracting another scenario or situation very similar. Now, for some of us, we were raised in narcissistic environments. For others, we attracted those relationships as we begin to grow. Perhaps it was a mentor, an early childhood educator, someone who was foundational in life. And then often we can have narcissistic relationships romantically and even in the office as we go into looking at careers and working and going out in the world. And so all manner of narcissistic relationships can happen. Part of my reason for doing this was because I raised a special needs child and there was a lot of narcissistic abuse happening there, but not in the traditional sense. It's very long. It's a very long, bizarre story. I never thought that I would step into this role, but as I did my own healing and I continued to do more work, even though I was working on different things, I kept seeing it over and over again. The empaths, the spiritual people, the people developing intuition, they all had some similarities. And the majority of them weren't realizing that they're in narcissistic patterns and repetitions. And so they need help breaking out. And so, even though I was doing all spiritual things and holistic and coach things and talking about communication, as we look at relationships, it just became more and more obvious that that was what I needed to do to help the clients that I have and to overcome this. And so now I finally have those solutions. And it's a full circle moment over here. And I'm very, very excited about that. So I got quiet because I was in full study mode and I kind of gave y'all a bit of a heads up that that may happen. And on top of full study mode, um, my husband took some time off, so I got to enjoy him for about a month. And just as that started to happen, I call this an ancestral push. And I don't know if you have ever felt this. and honestly felt like more of a shove. But um, there have been times before when we've talked about having the experience of the spiritual 2x4 when you're going through life and you're not paying attention and you're needing to learn a lesson the hard way because you're either in denial about what's happening, you're not wanting to face it, or you're really just not fully seeing it clearly. How sometimes life will come along and hit you with a spiritual 2x4. And it kind of is meant to wake you up to what's real. And it can lead into a dark night of the soul. And the dark night of the soul is some of the most difficult territory that I've ever been through and that many people will ever encounter in their lives. Now, the purpose of the dark night of the soul is not because the universe or source wants you to suffer. It's because you've been in resistance to something. You've been holding on too tightly. You don't see the other options or pathways available, and you've come to a dead end, and something needs to shift, change, or grow, or be let go of. And so you basically back yourself into a spiritual corner that then becomes very physical or mental and emotional. I've been through many dark nights of the soul. And so I wouldn't call this one, but it definitely could have had the makings. In any case, what I experienced was different. Now, most of you know that I am highly intuitive and I do have psychic abilities. I don't tend to advertise it. I don't tend to use them in my daily life most of the time unless I have a specific goal or need. And so I had a very odd moment one day while my spouse was home on his vacation. And I'm just double checking here to see that I am showing up where I am supposed to be. And so he had gotten called into work. And I want to say this was about a couple of days into him having time off. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, great. We've just come off like a really long weekend. And I figured, oh, I have some time to take care of some things and to focus on me. And I decided to have a shower while he was gone. And I was having a pretty good day overall, actually. And so I stepped out of the shower. I'm drying off and getting dressed. And all of a sudden, I'm aware of seeing all my loved ones around me, all my loved ones in spirit. I see my father, I see his mother, I see his dad on one side, I see my maternal grandmother on the other, I see some of my aunts, some of my uncles. And there's this feeling of unconditional love that's like permeating all around me. And I'm just thinking, uh-oh, what's happening here? Like, what is this about? Usually I turn all my abilities off and I'm not really paying attention to the spiritual side. I'm just focusing on being very present with what I'm doing. And while I'm feeling all that unconditional love, there's also a feeling, and I hear clairaudiently, we're so sorry. We have to do this. We have to do this not to hurt you. We're doing this to show you something. And I didn't think about it too much. And I thought, oh, okay. And hadn't occurred to me that about 2 weeks before that, I had asked my ancestors specifically for help. And I said, here's this problem that I'm having. Help me find the solution to this. And there's the disclaimer, right? If you're going to ask for help, be very specific in how you might want that help to show up. Because I was not. I was open to them helping me with their gifts and abilities and know-how for my highest and best because I had asked for help with other things and they had come through beautifully. No spiritual 2x4. That day was not the case. And so this was probably about March 8th by this point. And so my husband's going into work, and there I am drying off, just getting out of the shower, had a good day, feeling that unconditional love, and then getting that feeling and that sound of, I'm sorry, we have to do this. And the next thing I know, my feet slid out from under me, and I fall directly down, landing on the hard bathroom tile floor, and I feel it go all the way up the spine. And there's really no sensation to explain what that was like. I was winded right off the bat. And so I'm sitting there on the ground and I'm mad. I'm just instantly mad. Like, are you freaking kidding me? Of course, this is going to happen when I'm alone. And then I'm in a bit of a panic because I don't have my cell phone around and I can feel like I've lost the air. And so I sit for a minute and I acknowledge to myself of, okay, you're just winded. This is going to be okay. Take your time, just breathe slowly. I let the air come back in. And I'm not really sure at that point what hurts. And I'm kind of just sitting there trying to feel like, is anything broken? Is anything harmed? Because I fell really hard. And it took me a couple of minutes to slowly make my way onto my knees using all of my yoga tools to get my bottom off the ground and standing back up. And as I stand back up, I'm aware that, yeah, there's pain. Something is definitely hurtful. I don't assume that I'm going to be sitting anytime soon. um, and for all intents and purposes, my body has this bizarre response anymore. My body, when it detects any kind of threat, it has now chosen to insulate me like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Woman. And so over the next several days, I massively swell up, like full inflammation head to toe. My husband is having to help me so much. I'm like super reliant on him more than I've ever been. Super vulnerable, really sucked. If you want to learn something about trauma responses and how healed you are, you never find out better than when you're in a vulnerable position and you really have no choice. Because we have stairs. At this point, I realize, oh, that is going to be difficult. So there were a few days where I definitely spent some time in bed, elevated, not moving very much. And I don't know why, but I do know why, but it's not fun. Another trauma response that many people will have, particularly those who've come through narcissistic environments in childhood, you learn a certain thing when you're a kid. You learn that if you're swimming with sharks, you don't bleed in the water. And so, what that means in full adulthood is you anticipate showing up into relationships and not showing vulnerability or wound or need or hurt. I didn't start to do that until my current spouse. We've been married so long that by this point, you know how there are some people who talk in their sleep at night? That's always been me. I never imagined is my spouse would actually do this too. And the other night, do you know, I woke up, I became lucid midway. We were having a full conversation in our sleep about the TV episode we had just watched before going to bed. I didn't even tell him. He still doesn't even know. That's not a first time thing. This is how long we've been married. We've been married so long. When we go to sleep, we just continue conversing and having conversations about things. Is priceless. In any case, he's the reason that I have started to be able to be vulnerable, to be able to say, hey, this hurts or I need help. And there's never been an ounce of judgment or shame or mocking from him. There's only ever been support and unconditional love. And so, as a result of that relationship, I've been able to do this. But I'm still learning that as far as trauma responses go, I'm not likely to go to the ER. I'm not likely to go into the hospital unless it's really bad. And I think the hospital knows this at this point because the times they have seen me, I come in kind of nonchalant, like, oh, yeah, I got to look at this. I fell. Then they realize, oh, shoot, she's really done some things here. And if she's here, this must be bad because she doesn't do this. You might notice those patterns in yourself if you're someone who listens to this podcast, if you're someone who's healing, who's an empath, who's a spiritual person overcoming that kind of abuse. And I don't even want to say narcissistic abuse because it's not just in those relationships that it happens. You might be relating to people who are diagnosed, who are not diagnosed. The label doesn't really matter at the end of the day. What really matters is we learn the patterns that we grew up with and we start to break them and we be the one that overcomes. That's what matters. So it took me about a week and I was full on swollen. I was trying to sit on pillows because I could not fathom sitting directly on a chair. I had elevated myself in bed. My husband was going back and forth with pillows, and essentially the poor man became my caretaker. Um, and so after a week, inflammation started to come down, and then I started to notice pain, and it was pain that was persisting, was consistent, not going away. And I thought, oh, shoot. Dreaded the day that I have to go to the ER. And so, sure enough, St. Patrick's Day, I go in and I say, I hurt myself last week and I fell and I'm having some pain today. And we go in and they are not used to seeing me. And they know that when they do see me, I'm really not well. So they sent me for all of the scans. I think we scanned every part of this body. I now know everything in this body. And I no longer have any doubts of what there is or what there isn't. Um, and it's just wild to me. So we go in for all the scans, and what we learn is I am not. And here's, oh my God, I want to talk about this one element because this is so incredibly hard and painful. It's also very important. If you are someone who was raised in the same kind of environment that I was, and we learn not to bleed in the water where the sharks are, then there may also be something else that happens. There is a form of self gaslighting that can happen as a form of self protection. And so, for some of us, we'll go through life saying, oh, I have a high pain tolerance. That may be true. Or we may be so used to self abandoning out of protection that it actually does the opposite and it actually can be harmful. And so I already didn't want to go to the hospital. But then when I do, I'm ruminating in my head and I'm texting my husband and he's not available. And I'm letting him know, like, I don't know if I'm just making this up. Is this all in my head? The self gaslighting essentially is what I'm doing. Of I probably have nothing wrong with me. I probably shouldn't even be here. It's a good thing that I stayed. When we got the scans back, we had learned several things, and then a whole bunch of stuff unfolded later. When the scans came back, what we learned is that I did actually have a compression fracture on my T10 in my cervical spine. And I'm really, really fortunate that it is where it is, that it's not higher and it's not lower, because essentially it doesn't really give me that much pain unless I'm doing something that my body's just not ready to do because it's still repairing. I'm really lucky. I get to stand, walk, do most things. I had to put a hold on yoga. I'm not going to be doing any belly dancing right now for a while, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. I can come back to those things soon, just not quite yet. But as you can tell, here we are, the last final days of May. I'm still going through physical therapy. And actually, I'm going to be going to physical therapy right after this because when I do a thing, I'm going to do it well. It's unfortunate. Uh, so, throughout this, the main things that I've learned have been incredible. As they did the scans, they found other stuff as well, things that I didn't know about. And I thought maybe that was the answer my ancestors were trying to give me that day when they gave me that ancestral push. We learned that my thyroid on the left side is enlarged, and all of my tests and blood ranges seem to be in the normal range. So don't quite know that yet. Did end up going for an ultrasound, did end up going for a biopsy. Everything's in the clear. And yet my body is still maintaining and keeping weight when it should not be. What I've learned is my body is not going into fat burning, even though I live a high fat burning diet. It's just not working. And so some of that might be trauma response, which, if anything, I thought I knew really well, especially given who I am and what I do. Trauma informed, trauma responses, the nervous system. This has been stuff that I've been passionate about for the last decade, learning the ins and the outs. And so this whole experience has been somewhat of a gift because as I'm working through physical therapy, I have a completely different trauma response. They started to work on the neck. There was no injuries within the musculoskeletal system that we could see. There was a pinched nerve that one specialist saw, and I do feel that still, but it's not the end of the world. Doesn't inhibit too much, but as the physical therapist started to manipulate and like stretch the neck and the spine, my body went into a full central nervous system panic mode. And I've experienced PTSD, I've experienced complex PTSD, but I have never experienced that in that way. And it showed me multiple things. It showed me that mentally and emotionally, I have cleared so much baggage because the whole thing was purely mechanical. And when I say purely mechanical, I'm in a good mood, things are easy, my mind is clear and relatively focused, aside from the early 40 brain fog that we sometimes deal with as women. Things are generally good. And yet, I had to go back to the ER because after physical therapy, my heart rate and my pulse and everything had just gone through the roof. My blood pressure on both upper and lower was extremely high, and it created this headache that nothing could take away. And it was just the worst headache possibly that I've ever had. And I thought maybe it was glucose, maybe it was my blood sugar. I worry about diabetes sometimes, and I work hard to not have that. And that wasn't the thing at all. And so finally, I was having such a bad headache that I was like, I can't take this anymore. And my husband was on his way home from work by this time. And I just said, you know what? I learned that after going to the ER and gaslighting myself that I shouldn't be there, and then finding out that I had a compression fracture, that I need to really listen to myself more and that there are no more sharks in the water. It's time to start acknowledging when there's pain and tending to it rather than seeing it as a thing that would have me be unsafe. And so, if you've been through this, I want you to notice these patterns in yourself too, because they're incredibly important. And so he's like, well, if you wait for me, I'll take you in. And I said, we'll see. I feel really bad. I didn't necessarily want to drive, so I decided to go ahead and wait. And then he brought me in. We went in together. And just to see my blood pressure had gotten that high was outstanding. But I had the full trauma response. Like my body was in an active trauma response, and it was enduring for like days. And so I had like this crazy neck tension, so tense that it even made my throat hurt at times. And just noticing the body in hypervigilance. But it was such a disconnecting thing because emotionally and mentally, I'm like, all is good in the hood. Super coherent. I'm very present with myself. I'm not working on anything. It was so weird just to have it be purely mechanical like that and to have that happen a couple more times. Um, and so that was kind of a surprise to know that we can actually hurt the tissues in a way that can create that. Because, I mean, your neck, right? It's only keeping your head safe, it's only supporting your brain. And so it was just what an astounding experience to have that, because now I can identify it and I can help people with it even more. So seeing it from that angle where there is no emotional turmoil, there's no emotional trauma or abuse happening, and having it be completely separate was just a wild and amazing thing to learn. So I've learned so many things. And then, of course, because I am who I am, I don't just take time off. So even though I was restricted in terms of lifting, restricted in terms of movement, had to slow down on a lot of things, couldn't go for a regular walk. I could make it about a mile, and I'd have to have like pauses because there would be pain in the spine. That's improving quite a bit. It is healing now. There's hardly any pain, but I'm still restricted in terms of doing some movements. So I can't just drop into yoga and do a crazy spinal twist or anything right now. I've got to give it a little more time and patience. But what a journey it's been. And because I am who I am, I'm not primarily in flight. And for people who do constant education and training and certificate chasing, that can be a very flight mode response that's driven from not feeling good enough or not feeling worthy and always having to have accolades to feel seen. And I think I definitely did that in some time. I've well shifted out of that now. And so I'm a lot more discerning in the things that I choose. But I'm also still not one to just sit idle. That just doesn't happen. Learning gives me so much fulfillment, even when nobody else knows about it. It's just a way that I self charge and take care of myself, keeping my brain active and engaged. So, as I was finishing up training with Rania, which happened just on Sunday, I had decided partway through to also take Debbie Solaris's Akashic Records Clearing and Healing certificate. And that was several weeks as well. And wow, just when you think you can't love something more, I actually got to go deeper. And it's wild how things have been turning out. So I have started to make that available. And it's not just doing Akashic Records clearings or readings, rather. And it's not just the galactic part where we're looking at starseed origins. Now it's actually clearing energies and systems, looking at patterning and then reclaiming sovereignty. And it's just such a unique and cool process. So I've been working with that, very, very much enjoying it, starting to make that available. And as a result, I decided to go ahead and bring back readings. I know some of you are very excited about this because I haven't had time to do readings. Given how much I've had to slow down, I've had a lot of time. And I've started to enjoy that part of my life again. And so now, yes, I am actively doing mediumship readings, Akashic readings, animal communication, emotion code, body code, and all of those are now available on the website. So voila. If you wanted to do coaching and just have it be a quick 30-minute session, I have opened those up as well. Because so often I see people that come to my website, they look at the variety of different services I offer, and I realize that as a spiritual dilettante, there's a lot of stuff in the tool belt now, and it's really hard to choose at times. If you don't know, then that's why I created this new thing that I've created, which is finding your next steps, where you buy that 30-minute consultation with me and have the reading of your choice. And then we look together at, well, what are your next steps and do you want help? And then I can make some suggestions, whether it's working with me or other talented people that I know that will benefit you for the goals that you have. So you don't have to worry about not knowing what to book anymore. Made it just so much simpler and a whole lot more fun and enjoyable. And so, as a result of that, I'm doing readings again and very, very much having fun and enjoying that process. So, that's where I've been. Oh my goodness. It's been a lot. And then through that, of course, I'm always looking at my own stuff. And I've, finishing up the class with Rania, I started to realize, oh my God, I'm going to miss these people so much. And they're having a conference. We're going to be talking about it a little bit more. We've already talked about it once when Rania was on the show before, and it is the Hypno Summit Portugal conference in its inaugural event, and that is happening in October. And so I was kind of sitting in bed working on the computer. just I don't just watch TV. It's not a good use of time for me. So I'm starting to research, and my husband's kind of curious, and he's looking over to see like what am I doing. And he's like, "Oh, it's a conference." He's like, "Do you want to go to that?" And I was thinking about it, and we have so many other goals and priorities for our finances right now that I just didn't see how it was going to be possible. I was just like, it feels like almost it would be irresponsible on one hand, and yet on the other hand, there's like developmental stuff happening that I don't want to miss out on. I would say this is a don't miss conference. And so I started thinking about it. It's like, it's not logical, but I do want to go. I do want to have this experience. And at the moment that I made the choice that I wanted it, he just looked at me and said, "Well, do the research. Let me know what the numbers are. We'll make it happen." And so I was just kind of giddy and thinking about that and starting to look into it. And then, of course, the next conversation I have is my mother. And my mother wants to go to Portugal. She wants to see a religious site. The Lady of Fatima is something that she's been inspired by for a very long time. And so she wants to go on this Christian pilgrimage. But at 7 years old, that's not exactly something you do alone. So when I told her, and it turns out Lisbon is like less than 2 hours away from that, we decided that we could make it a combo trip travel together. Um, two birds, two stones, but we'll make it a round trip. And so, if you are going to be there at that conference, I will be there too. So make sure you come and say hello. I can't wait to see all of the presentations that are happening because this conference is very, very different. It's really more oriented towards the attendees, and you don't have to be a hypnotist for this. You could be hypno curious. You could just be anybody and want to have some personal development work, come in off the street and enjoy this conference. There are limited seats, mind you, and have some personal development work. There are amazing, amazing speakers. I'm particularly excited to hear Adam Cox and, of course, Gilles Zach, who's been on this podcast, and Rania is going to be there and presenting too. But then there's also Freddie Jacquin and a few others. I think overall there's like 8 presenters, and each one is doing not just a presentation, but it's an experiential, all for personal development, health, well-being on all levels. It's so exciting. And I've never been to Europe, so very, very excited about that. Otherwise, let's catch up. What else is happening? I'm recovering from the ancestral shove. And it's slow, but it's good. And otherwise, I'm back to work. I started seeing clients again last week. So the appointment book is open. I've had some incredible sessions, and some of you didn't even know what had happened. I showed up and I was inflamed, but I was still happy to guide journeys, did some incredible between live sessions, and a little bit of IEMT, helping people with trauma responses. Even in healing time, I'm so in love with what I do that I can't wait to help people still. But I'm fully back to it now. Less Stay Puft, thankfully, a little more parasympathetic. And so that is where we are at the state of things today. And so, because I've spent all of the time and effort and the learning, I am going to be shifting into doing more recovery work. And although I will be supporting a lot of people overcoming narcissistic abuse, I really hate to just label it as narcissistic abuse because there's so many people who've gone through just equally difficult and harrowing experiences with trauma and relational trauma, specifically, and developmental trauma. I don't really necessarily want to pigeonhole it as to just overcoming a narcissist, because if you've had people on the cluster B that you've loved over time, the label doesn't matter. They might have comorbidities. They may have borderline. They may have psychopathy. And all of those things, they also take a toll. So it's not just overcoming narcissistic abuse, but rather it is overcoming and healing abuse overall, emotional, mental, financial. There's the energetic component to it. And so I'm going to be shifting to do more of that work. I will still be doing everything else, but that is going to take a big part of my attention. And so, what I'm thinking moving forward is that for this podcast, I'm still going to have the guests that you love talking about their different specialties, but I'm also hoping to have more one on one catch up time right here to be talking about some of the different topics that come up. Even just today, as I start working on case studies, I'm seeing, oh, attachment trauma. That's going to need to be something that is looked at and healed. There's additional stuff and work to be done there. There's just so much to look at. And I want to share the journey with you. So if those are things that are interested and fascinating to you, I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll send in your questions, your comments, and ask questions so that we can really get into deep answers and exploration and finding out additional means of helping people heal. So that's where I'm at. There was my exciting news, and there's where we're going next. And I just want to thank you for being so patient with me during this time. Admittedly, I am working hard on the being vulnerable part and letting people know what I'm going through rather than just going pure hermit mode and disappearing. Some of you beautiful hypno colleagues, you know who you are, who noticed I got quiet. You reached out. Thank you. If you knew that I was going through this, I want you to know that you are someone to me that I consider very, very dear and I hold close, because most people did not know. And I tend to pipe down, and I'm learning to get a little bit better about that, about letting people know, hey, going through a thing. And although I'm usually the suffer in silence kind and just self solve, I'm working at giving you guys opportunities to show up for me. So thank you if you did, if you checked in, and if we had a conversation. I appreciate you so much. And I learned so much about myself through this whole little excursion, and I'm so ready for this to be done. So, brighter days in the future. Literally, you can't get much brighter than Lisbon, Portugal. That's going to be all the sunshine, going to enjoy the beach. And we have a few months before that, so you'll be seeing some guests coming on. Our next one is going to be Melanie the Mystic. I've enjoyed her tarot readings so much that I'm hoping you enjoy her too. So she'll be a guest here coming up in a couple of days. And then we'll talk to Rania for Hypno Summit Portugal, and you can ask all of your questions about the conference. And I hope that maybe I'll see you there. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it with this. Thank you so much for your patience, your love, your support. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, stay well, but most of all, stay inspired. Bye for now.